Welcome back to another episode of the Tech Talks Daily podcast, where we explore the ever-evolving intersection of technology and society. And I'm your host, Neil C. Hughes, and today I've got a remarkable guest who's going to be joining us. He's at the forefront of a groundbreaking fusion between technology, gaming and music. His name is Toa Dunn, formerly associated with Riot Games and now a consultant in this exciting space. Toa has spent over a decade shaping the future of gaming and music, and his insights into the evolving landscape are nothing short of fascinating, intriguing and inspiring. Because over the years we've witnessed a remarkable evolution in technology and entertainment that has led to a unique convergence of music and gaming, and as regular listeners will know, two areas that I am incredibly passionate about. So from virtual artists to transmedia storytelling, the possibilities seem boundless. But today we're going to explore the intersection of these worlds and hopefully gain a deeper understanding of the future of virtual music groups and much more. So buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to Los Angeles, where Toa is waiting to speak with us today. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, of course. So as I said, my name is Toa Dunn, and I spent, the past 10 years at Riot Games, where I, developed a music initiative into a kind of core pillar of entertainment that had this, iconic impact on the brand, culture, and revenue. And so now I consult and advise on projects to really help teams transform their ideas into these iconic products and experiences. So I'm spending a lot of time really working with video games, teams in startup, as well as content and production companies and a few music labels as well.
Well, there's so many reasons I'm looking forward to speaking with you today, because the intersection of music and technology is something that's fascinated me for years. And I've got to ask, what's your origin story though? How did those worlds of music, gaming and technology collide for you? I feel there's got to be a story there, right?
Yeah, definitely a story. And for the sake of your podcast, I'm going to try to keep it short. But, I guess to kind of rewind back to my youth. So I was born and raised in Alaska. And it was there where I kind of discovered my first love for music. Played the saxophone, played in band growing up, and fell in love playing jazz at an early age. And then also was part of a, we were a hip hop group, I'll say that. And I was pretty terrible at rapping, I believe now, as I listen to any of it. But, then I came down here to Los Angeles and went to USC, and kind of caught the production bug. We had a radio show. I was a DJ and music producer at the same time. And throughout life, I always played video games, loved video games. In fact, probably the Street Fighter franchise, I spent a good chunk of my life playing, as well as others. And so when I graduated university, I went into wealth and asset management, kind of what every good kid does, right? In banking. But I was still, doing music as a passion project. I was still DJing, I was still producing music and working with a small label. And it wasn't until Riot that I got to kind of combine all these things, my love for kind of technology and, music, but also putting together kind of a lot of the skills I learned in my, professional career, so to speak. And that's where I got to kind of converge all of this together. So it was, Riot Games, my stint at Riot Games and with music was really just pulling everything together that I'd been passionate about and really got to kind of express and experiment.
And I just love how the stars almost aligned for you there. And of course, we record the episode today, just a week after the Grand Theft Auto franchise has released a new teaser trailer. And of course, I think it first debuted back in 1997. And this new trailer for Grand Theft Auto 6, what set it apart for me was the soundtrack, a 1980s Tom Petty classic, Love is a Long Road. Now, while the trailer has already garnered 100 million views, no surprises there, I think Spotify reported an astonishing 37,000% increase in streams. I mean, as someone that loves video games and loves music, did that surprise you?
I mean, no, I mean, I'm not surprised. It's amazing to see, in fact,
Yeah.
right? And this is something, we had seen for a while. I mean, just with, a lot of our past executions with music, everything from when we worked with an artist, you could see a bump in their Spotify streams immediately, whether we featured them on stream or worked with them on a project, a collaboration. So it's great to see kind of that transfer over into, Spotify itself for the artist. And I think just video games and music in general has just had such a strong relationship for many years, right? I mean, going back decades. I mean, the things I think about are everything from, Def Jam Vendetta to, obviously Grand Theft Auto as a franchise, especially when they brought in music to be a big part of kind of the experience when they were licensing kind of music of culture and everything. So no, it doesn't really surprise me. It's amazing to see that it's still strong. In fact, I think, being a gamer myself, like I love music. And so having great music as a part of that experience is always just going to be a big, just a great part of the overall video game experience.
And I'm curious, considering your extensive experience at Riot Games music, how do you perceive the role of emerging technologies? And by that, I mean AR and VR and XR, and the role in shaping the future of music production and consumption, particularly in the context of virtual bands and gaming soundtracks, etc. Incredibly exciting time, right?
Yeah, it's a very fascinating time.
Yeah,
I think, I mean, it's a pretty, to try to, I think, break down and approach this question, I think I have to look at it in a few different ways. So one, everything that's happening in technology, right? Like we're at a time where technology is evolving really fast, right? The rate of evolution in it is just crazy. Everything we've seen with AI and, even in Web3 and whatnot, how fast things have evolved. But we're also seeing a really fast rate of adoption, right? I mean, back in the day, technology, it used to take, maybe 10, 15 years for technology to be fully adopted. Now people are willing to, this new kind of generation or generations are willing to adopt technology, especially if it makes, their life better in some way or form. And so right now we're at this pinnacle where, video games is when you look at it, right? Video games is, using technology and software as a form of entertainment. And I think the secret sauce of video games is they always have to make it fun, right? Nobody wants to play the same game twice, or over and over again. And so I just think when you see all of these converging, right, whether it's in, especially in music, right, we're virtual artists, there's this creative sphere that is really, and I think music can be attributed to a lot of this, is they're fast to adopt and try things, especially with technology, advancement in technology. And you see that with artists that have been involved in video games, right? You probably saw the Travis Scott and Marshmello in Fortnite, a few years back. And you have people like Grimes, right? They're always really searching and looking for ways to kind of expand the way they can express themselves with music. And so, yeah, there's just a lot of things moving real fast. And I think it's an exciting time. And especially for me, I mean, I'm elated with everything that's going on because it is this convergence of technology and entertainment. And I just feel a lot of us who have been, especially on the video game space, and we've been merging these for a while, right? I mean, 2017 when, we used AR to land a dragon basically on broadcast in the Bird's Nest Stadium for our World Finals, right? Like we've been always looking for new ways to kind of delight and surprise our players. So there's a million ways to look at it, a million things to get excited about. And I think it's really about just who's going to focus and try to push the space in a meaningful way.
Incredibly cool. And a question I've got to ask now is, in this era where things like virtual bands and characters are gaining popularity, how does Riot Games music balance things like artistic integrity of these virtual artists with the commercial imperatives of the gaming and entertainment industry? I imagine it's quite a tricky balance.
Well, I think just everybody is having to do that.
Yeah.
I think it was interesting just the other day, right? We saw Content Creator of the Year, the Video Games Award, right? That was Iron Mouse, in fact, right? Which is a VTuber who uses an avatar as a way for her to kind of be represented as a content creator. So yeah, I think that's something kind of all places as technology evolves, we all have to kind of understand what is the impact kind of on humanity. And, we have to kind of feel it out to an extent of what is ethical and what isn't, had a lot of those questions kind of come up with AI, the use of AI, right? But we've been using a lot of, whether it's algorithms and machine learning, throughout, tech and even on the back end of entertainment to an extent, right? But as it creeps up forward and people think about it, just does it replace people? What are the tasks we're okay with it taking over and things like that? So yeah, that's going to be a big conversation, I think, for a little bit, at least, or for a good amount of time as technology evolves. We have to kind of figure out as ourselves kind of its role in our lives and what we're okay with and things. But, I think we've seen things like this. I think in music itself, right? I think music's been through an interesting phase, a while back, when the internet was introduced and the laptop made music production possible, because in the old days, you used to have to, have access to a recording studio and be able to afford to have access to it and probably have some talent in understanding in music production, as well as, being able to write or sing or perform music, have access to people who could help you, and then an engineer to be all of this you had to have in a physical state to be able to record music, let alone distribute it somehow, print it on vinyl or something, right? So that was really difficult. But once the laptop was capable of, and you had these DAWs and anybody could make music, and then you had, the services that enabled people to just distribute their music. Now we have over 100,000 songs per day hitting Spotify. Mm-hmm. Right. So we've kind of seen similar things like this of technology kind of unlocking the pipelines for this stuff. And so we have the same thing with AI now and kind of just the technology in general. So I think that's always going to be a balancing act that we're going to have to figure out of, hey, this new technology, what is the impact of it? And what are we okay with versus not?
And just to dig a little bit deeper on that, as virtual influencers do become increasingly prominent in both the music and gaming industries, I'm curious, looking to 2024 and beyond, how do you see these trends evolving and any other implications that it might have for the way that music and gaming content is both created and consumed? Anything that you not necessarily predict, but how you see it evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I think, so there's a few things here, right? There's the virtual artists, so to speak, and there's, kind of virtual artists. And what I mean by that is kind of, musicians and musical artists. There's content creators that can be assisted a lot by technology with, the VTuber space and everything you see with HoloLive, which is kind of a blend of those. And I think, and then I think of technology personally as it's kind of like magic, if this makes sense. It's the underlying magic that helps you accomplish something either probably faster, better, or in a way that just couldn't be done without the technology, right? So it's, for me, magic is just getting better and more powerful for us. And so I think how it affects, virtual artists and music, for example, is I think it's additive. I think the virtual artist space is going to continue to grow because it's not going to replace humans. It's kind of like adding another genre. There's going to be, because it's so, technology based, right? Like you could have these artists that are very, science fiction like, or just like, you can really stretch your creative boundaries with the technology and nobody will bat an eye, because there's just kind of more context and understanding and, open arms to that type of expression because it's digital. And so I just think this gives the opportunity for more creative expression for those who want to express themselves that way. And this also gives the opportunity for fans who like this type of expression and potentially different types of experiences because it's more technology based, right? You can do things, whether physical or digitally, in a way that you can't, it might be risky for the health of a real musician, right? Like hanging them from somewhere and flying them around a space is probably dangerous, but really easy with the digital avatar. I say easy, of course, but I just think there's going to be more opportunity in the virtual artist space. And we're seeing that again, Iron Mouse on the Content Creator of the Year, but also you see things like Hollow Live and what they're doing and Hatsune Miku, and you see some in the K-pop space where they're blending, both virtual and real artists to give kind of new spins in the space. So I just think you're going to see more value coming out of overall. Yeah, I'd see that. I think it's going to be across the board. That makes sense.
Yeah, it really does. And of course, looking back, Riot Games has been successful in creating a cohesive universe that spans games, music, and other media too. And I'm curious, what are some of the unique challenges that you guys are facing in maintaining narrative and brand consistency across multiple platforms, especially when dealing with music and virtual artists? Is there anything you can share around some of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think the whole word of transmedia has been a challenge for many IPs, so to speak. Yeah. I mean, there's quite a difference on how, even how Star Wars has been really leaning into what it means to transmedia, right? I mean, everything from, the original Star Wars movies, but then you have Mandalorian, which is on Disney streaming.
Yeah.
And how you have to think about the IPs and how they tell story within these IPs. And very different from how I think like Star Trek has treated it, Harry Potter. And so, yeah, I think a lot of places have come across the challenge, and a lot of the challenge is understanding how, like, a good way to tell story in a way that doesn't, isn't painful for the readers or the fans, right? Because some of these platforms are very separate. So it's hard to have an expectation that people will hop from platform to platform to chase the story, right? And if you miss one on one platform, does that mean you don't have the needed context for the story you are now engaging in, right? Did you miss out and therefore you don't understand what you're reading or engaging with, right? These are all kind of puzzles and things for people to figure out. And it's going to vary because all these platforms and media types are quite different. And so I also think that's what's exciting, because I don't think transmedia storytelling has been mastered yet. And also there's all new platforms than there were 5 years ago. And these platforms, like you have TikTok, and TikTok is quite a different platform than your Twitters or other ones, right? Short form video and the behaviors and expectations of the users. And that has to be brought into your transmedia storytelling strategy, so to speak. So yeah, I think no one's solved it fully. I think you just kind of have to approach it, and hopefully you approach it from a very strategical way of understanding the types of behaviors and expectations on the different platforms and how you want to best express your story in a transmedia way. I think it's exciting, quite frankly, because now you have video games as a very interesting vertical within storytelling itself. I think there was a really interesting case with, I shouldn't call it a case, but, there's, as an example, if you watch the first Star Wars, of course. And, there's the cantina scene, right? In the bar. And, the music, of course, you probably hear in your head, but there's all the different types of aliens that you see in that bar. But you're never told what these aliens are called or anything, right? But if you ask really deep fans about the Star Wars, they'll know each and every single one of them, like what species they are and whatnot. And one way that it's been expressed is if you played the video games, in the video games, they actually tell you exactly who they are. So it wasn't in the original film itself. They never told you that, right? But transmedia storytelling, if done right, can offer new ways to go deeper into the lore and IP, right? And in ways that are probably more organic and natural. And so deep fans can find out every single alien in that first cantina scene. They just probably found out somewhere else. That makes sense.
It does, and you've also given me some earworm now. I've got that cantina music playing on repeat.
Oh, right. Oh, the power of music. Exactly. So you just have to say cantina scene and it's da, 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 da. Yeah.
Oh, man. So if I asked you to look into a virtual crystal ball to see the future of this space, where do you see that intersection of gaming, music, and virtual entertainment heading? And additionally, any ethical considerations you think should be addressed as we further blur the lines between digital and real-world experiences?
I mean, I think you're going to see more convergence. I mean, I'd say even over the past year, we're already seeing a lot more convergence into the video game space. I mean, ever since the pandemic, I think there's a lot more attention to video games and interest. And so I just expect more convergence, both of whether the video game has an IP and has characters and they kind of come to life in our reality a bit more, or if it's, music artists take on virtual aspects of themselves and have a deeper integration into digital mediums like video games. I think you're going to see more of those as well. I think some of the ethical questions really just comes around, are these artists, the expression of these characters or artists, right, is how human are they? How much human input? And one thing that I always thought is really, interesting, right, is, and this is something I've thought about a lot, is when you think about, let's say you take a big artist, like a Lady Gaga, for example, and you see her as like this really big, big known artist and whatnot. But when you really think about it, like Lady Gaga is not like in person, like that person. Her name's Stephanie. She's got a really great long, I think like Italian name. Yeah, something. I may be wrong, right? But so Lady Gaga itself is kind of an avatar, right? It's not the real person. But Lady Gaga is an avatar that is performed by Stephanie, and there's a whole team behind Lady Gaga, marketing, brand. Like there's a whole team behind that makes Lady Gaga what she is. And so often when you look at some of these virtual artists and people worry about them, replacing people, is usually you have kind of a very similar setup. Is you have someone who's probably voicing that artist, and then you have a big marketing and brand team if it's successful doing the same thing. And I'm not using this as a way to kind of like, there is no worries or qualms with ethical things. I think we still need to understand the humans and the individuals. And I'm really big on team culture. In fact, that's kind of one of my biggest pillars that I like to lead with, is what it means to have a high impact team and a team culture that people just love to work in, and how you get really great results from that. But I think the future is just going to be, and I think that's going to be very important in the future as well, is like these teams being within a culture that they're just like highly passionate. Because that's the thing I loved about at Riot Games, and especially my team back then, is it was a highly driven, highly passionate team that felt like a family. And I think you got that in the output of the music and the experiences that the team had. And so I just think the future is just going to be more of this. I think it's going to look different though. And what I mean by that is, I think kind of these virtual artists provide a platform opportunity of almost like a different business model. I think they'll be able to do things differently and lean into things in a way that is beneficial for virtual artists. And so I think that's going to be an interesting opportunity as well.
Wow. Such a great point. I never thought of it that way. And you're so right in what you're saying there. And of course, at this time where emerging technologies are almost converging in front of our eyes at breakneck speed, there is a real pressure on everyone to be in a state of continuous learning. So I've got to ask, as someone in such a fast-paced moving industry, where or how do you self-educate to keep on top of things?
Yeah, I think for me, I'm a big, for self-educating, I think it's interesting. I love to, I consume a good amount, I'd say. So I am, as much as I was in gaming, I played games and I still do. I consume a lot of music. And I like to I think there's kind of two things. There's the more, I don't know if you want to call it like scholastic educational side of developing your skill, right? Kind of, but I think there's also the more organic, like discovery side where you just kind of have to be a part of the culture and know these things. So, and I believe in both kind of angles of it, because I think that's where you come together and you form, your point of view of the space and so I go to, I spend a good amount of time. I call it spending time in the weird, so to speak, right? It's just like, what are the kids really into? What's the youth really into that's not mainstream yet? What makes it so cool, right? And a lot of times for me, it's always been, I love culture and different cultures, right? Like I love when I travel, I like to spend a good amount of time there. And then I don't go to all the touristy places. I want to know where the locals go. I want to try to understand the language, and I want to try to like get a vibe of the music. What is music for that culture as well? And how can that be influenced into, how I think about music? So I'm really into, in quotes, cultural music, so to speak, right? Just because I think it's just fascinating. And then of course there's just like the more educational side. What really is happening at a macro sense in technology and video games. And, I have a really great network on LinkedIn of folks, just a lot of smart people. And I think one of the best ways to self-educate is to have conversations with other people that you either admire or just like doing great things or just are in the weeds. I think a lot can come from, because you get a deeper understanding of not only what is being done, but why it's being done. And if you can kind of start to put together your network, mentally of all these whys, it gives you an understanding of what actually may happen in the future. Hope that's probably a little bit of a vague way of painting it, but
not at all. I think you encapsulated it with the line "spending time in the weird." It's something that I enjoy doing too, and I also love what you said. I mean, we're talking about technologies and music, etc. But the best way to self-educate is having conversations with those in the industry and those that you admire, etc. Pure gold. But for anyone listening wanting to find out more information about any of your work or carry on the conversation with you or your team, where would you like to point everyone listening today?
Yeah, so LinkedIn has really been kind of like my inbox lately. So, I mean, if you hear this and you want to reach out to me, definitely send me either a DM or, reach out to me on LinkedIn. That's kind of been my inbox as of late, and most of my conversations. I'm also on Twitter here and there, carrying some conversations or sharing thoughts and stuff like that. But LinkedIn's kind of the main place to get a hold of me.
Awesome. Well, I'll add a link to your LinkedIn so people can find you nice and easy. Just love chatting with you today. Incredibly cool conversation. And I, for one, will be spending more time in the weird, maybe with that Cantina soundtrack playing while I do it. But just thank you for joining me today.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So a huge thank you to Toa for providing a glimpse into the fascinating world of gaming, music, and technology. And I think it's evident that emerging technologies from AR, VR, and XR are helping to shape the future of music production and consumption, particularly in the gaming realm. But the rise of virtual artists is adding a new dimension to creative expression, enhancing the overall experience for fans. For any organisation grappling with the ever-changing threat landscape and also considering the safety of equipping your employees with Mac, tune into the We Got Your Mac podcast, a show that delves into the reasons behind widespread deployment of Apple Mac platform. If you check out the show, you can also learn how this technology not only revolutionises businesses, but also drives transformative growth. And on the pod, they explore improved employee experience, heightened productivity, and a redefined company image. So if you're interested in gaining valuable insights into the Mac operating system and hardware security, as well as a comprehensive overview of that Mac security ecosystem, don't miss the latest episodes of We Got Your Mac, featuring expert guests released every 2 weeks. You can listen anywhere that you tune into your favourite podcasts and at wegotyourmac.com. So please email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, if you want to continue the conversation, or send me a quick DM on Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just at Neil C. Hughes. I'm nice and easy to find. Your feedback fuels our mission to keep bringing you thought-provoking discussions like this one. So thank you to Toa for joining me today, and a huge thank you to each and every one of you for tuning into this daily podcast. And until next time, don't be a stranger.